Close your eyes and imagine. What if the things in life that cause us the greatest pain, the things that bring us grief, are challenges? Challenges designed to help us grow, to ultimately become what we were always meant to be. We feel like we've been buried, but what if, like a seed, we've been planted? And having been planted, we grow to become a mighty tree. Now, open your eyes. Open your eyes to this way of viewing life. Come with me as we explore your true, infinite, eternal nature. This is Grief to Growth, and I am your host, Brian Smith. Welcome to another episode of Grief to Growth, where we dive deep into understanding life's challenges and discovering pathways to growth and understanding. Whether you're joining us for the first time or you're a returning listener, we're really glad to have you here. And today I'm thrilled to introduce a remarkable guest. Her name is Elissa Hope, and she's the author of the best-selling book, Hope from Heaven. Her profound experience at just 14 years old, where she faced death and encountered God, has captured the hearts and minds of many. Her journey is not just about survival, it's a testament to divine intervention and to purpose. Her story begins with an extraordinary event where she came face to face with God in heaven and was sent back with a mission that has the potential to inspire and to uplift all who hear it. Beyond her near-death experience, Elissa's life has been a journey of finding love, discovering twin flames with her supermodel boyfriend, Todd Irvin, and turning profound grief into a purpose that resonates with hope and healing. Today, we'll explore Elissa's near-death experience, the divine vision she was granted, and how she has used this profound encounter to shape her life's work. We'll also get a glimpse into her personal life, learning about her relationship with Todd and their deep spiritual connection as twin flames. So as you tune into this episode, I encourage you to reflect on the narratives of divine encounters and how they can alter our path in life. And after the podcast, make sure you continue the conversation in our community space at grieftogrowth.com/community. So with that, I want to welcome Elissa Hope.
Hi, Brian. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it is so nice to meet you, Elissa. Thank you for being here and for sharing your experience with us today. So if you wouldn't mind, let's start by just talk about the experience that you had.
Sure. It started way back when I was only 14 years old, and we won't say how old I am now. But my mother, she was going to be going through a divorce. She was separated, and my dad was not giving her the money that he normally would to take me to my dentist to have a cavity filled. So a dental clinic opened up a couple minutes away from our house, and my mother took me there. She thought nothing of it. So, I don't know if he even was a licensed dentist. I didn't see any dental diplomas up on his wall. And he just gave me much too much nitrous oxide gas that cut off my oxygen supply, and I had no pulse. I was dead. And they told me after they got me back with CPR, they told me that they were going to give up on CPR because they just could not get a pulse. So during the time that CPR was being performed, my soul left my body, and it traveled through a long, dark, speeding tunnel that seemed to go on for miles and miles and miles out, just like such a quick, pace. And I believe that I knew that my body was back in the dentist chair, and that, I didn't know where I was going to, but I was not scared. It was just more like, what is happening, but at the end of that long, dark, speeding tunnel, it opened up into the brightest light, and my 3 guardian angels were waiting for me in the light. And they said that they were sent to wait for me in the light, and they told me that I was safe with them in heaven. And they said that there was an accident back at the dentist. They said I died and that I was safe with them in heaven. And they gave me the choice of staying in heaven or returning to my life with an important purpose. And I kept saying, I have to go back. I have to go back. My mom really needs me, because I was my mother's only daughter. I have 2 older brothers, but my mother wanted a girl so badly that she kept going until she had me. And, you know, we were very close. We were best friends. So I just felt like, I just felt like she wouldn't be able to survive if I just, just left her behind like that. So I said, I have to go back. My mom really needs me. And my guardian angel said, think very carefully, because you will only have this one chance to stay here in heaven. Or they said, or you're going to live a very long life back on earth. They said, if you decide to go back to your life, it will be very challenging in exchange for being allowed to go back. They said, but you will be sent back with a very important purpose. So they said, but if you stay with us here in heaven, you will have more happiness than you will ever know, they said. And there was this big white door, and they said, if you pass through this door, there is no turning back. Then you have to stay here. They said, you will be so amazed at what is behind this door, so much more glorious heaven, and who is behind it. And I was just like so undecided, because when they would, tell me that I will have eternal peace and happiness in heaven, just eternal bliss, I would inch closer to the door. And I would say, okay, I think I'll stay. But then they said, we want to show you something. And all of a sudden, I'm watching my own funeral, what it would be like if I chose to stay in heaven and not return to my life. And everybody was there, my whole family, teachers, friends, neighbors. And of course, everybody was upset. But the only one who was beyond inconsolable, grief-stricken, was my mother. And it was a closed casket, but my mother kept throwing herself on top of the casket, and she was screaming, crying, Elissa, my baby, don't leave, Elissa. So I said to my guardian angel, see, I have to go back. My mom really needs me. So they said, your relationship with your mother, they said, it's not going to be, a bed of roses. It's not going to be as great as you think it will be. They said it's going to be very turbulent, but you will have a special bond where you'll be able to read each other's thoughts and finish each other's sentences. So I said, and they said to me again, they said, your mother will be very hurt. They said, but in time, she'll be better than how I was witnessing her at my funeral, totally inconsolable. So again, they just kept, they kept like telling me, reassuring me that I will never be as happy as I will be in heaven. And they said, if you do go back to your life, you're going to go through something very, very difficult. You don't even think that you'll survive it, but you will, because we're going to be watching over you. And they said, when you feel very lonely, you're going to feel someone stroking your hair. And they said, it's going to be them comforting me. So again, I said, I have to go back. My mom really needs me. And I was like in tears, because part of me, of course, wanted to stay in heaven, because it was just, you can't imagine how peaceful and just glorious, it was so blissful there. But then the other part of me just said, I just have to go back. My mom really needs me. So then all of a sudden I hear footsteps, and I'm standing face to face with God. God is standing right in front of me, our Heavenly Father, creator of the universe. And God said to me, what's the matter, my child? Why are you crying? Why are you so upset? I said, I have to go back. My mom really needs me. And as soon as I said that, God said, I understand. And he turned to my 3 guardian angels, and he said, send her back immediately. And he said to me, but I'm sending you back with an important purpose. He said, you will not remember, once your soul's back in your body, you will not remember everything that you were told here. You will not remember what your full purpose is until the time is right. He said, because you're just much too young now to handle such a big responsibility. Being God's messenger would be a big responsibility for even a grown-up, but let alone a teenager. So I told him that I understood. And there's a little bit more that went on in heaven, which, I'll save that for my book because I just don't like to tell everything. And I don't want to ruin it for the people who are going to read it, because you wouldn't want to go see a movie if you knew like everything, the whole ending and everything. So anyway, I hugged God and my guardian angels, and I said to my guardian angels, I hope you're not upset, because they had really wanted me to stay in heaven with them. And they laughed and they said, of course not. We'll be watching over you for the rest of your life, and you're going back with an important purpose. And they said, we'll be waiting for you again in the light when your time is up. And I said, thank you. And my soul went back through that long, dark, speeding tunnel. And just before my soul was back in my body, I saw and I heard everything going on in the dental clinic. The dental hygienist was still performing CPR on me, and the dentist was frantic. He was screaming because the hygienist said there's still no pulse. And the dentist said, don't give up. Oh my God, she's only 14. We have to get it back. Don't give up. Keep trying. So the dental hygienist, I felt the 3 thrusts on my chest, the 3 breaths in my mouth, and maybe like 5 seconds later, I heard her say, there's a pulse now. We have it back. So the dentist yelled, thank God. And I laughed to myself, and I thought I did just thank God personally. So I was still, though, like very, dazed in a daze. And I said, what just happened? I said, I was just in heaven. I told him I just met God in heaven. And the dentist said, I believe it. He said, you were gone. He said, we were giving up on CPR almost. We just could not get a pulse back. So he was still crying. He said, do you forgive me? And, I knew it was an accident. And I thought it was pretty cool that I just came face to face, with God in heaven. So I told him that I forgave him. And he didn't finish filling the cavity. And he said to my mother, something went wrong with the nitrous oxide. I couldn't finish her cavity. And then he said, take her home. And if she doesn't feel well, take her to the emergency room. And the reason why he did say that was because a couple of years later on the news, my mom and I heard on the news that a 70-year-old girl died the same way at the dentist, getting a cavity filled, too much nitrous oxide. And they were able to revive her too. But then when she went home and she went to sleep, she was found dead in the morning.
Wow.
Yes. And then also my neighbor, her dentist died the same way, but he did it to himself accidentally. They found him with the nitrous oxide mask on his face in the morning, dead. So he must have been doing it, for another reason,
Yeah.
So, yeah. And my uncle was the biggest dentist in Westchester. And he said, I never use nitrous oxide in my practice. That stuff kills people. And I said, no kidding. It killed me, So,
Right.
yeah.
So, you chose to come back at 14. And what was it like? You said you saw God face to face. What did God look like?
Oh gosh, he was in human form. So I've seen a couple different pictures of Jesus. One picture did resemble God a lot, only God's face was older, more mature looking, which makes sense because Jesus is the Son of God, So he was just like the most magnificent, I can't even put it into words because I knew I'm standing right in front of God, So he had long brown wavy hair, and he had a beard, a mustache like you do, and he had beautiful brown eyes. They were just full of so much like depth and, and like emotion, and just he was wearing a long white robe, and he was wearing gladiator sandals. He was walking with a cane embellished in gold. He had a very strong, deep, powerful voice, but at the same time, it was just so beautiful and kind and loving. You know, I mean, you could imagine just to be standing face to face with God. It's just beyond. And then also though, you know, when I was back here on earth after my beloved boyfriend Todd Irvin died, two weeks after Todd died, because I felt like I'm going to die of a broken heart. So I felt like I literally could feel like, you know, just my body shutting down, because I was beyond grief stricken because Todd died suddenly, you know. So two weeks after he died, God's spirit came to me and healed me completely. Now, he came to me in spirit form because nobody on the face of this earth can see God. No one can see God's face here on earth. But when I was in heaven, I was able to see him in human form because, you know, my soul was in heaven. So, and my body was back on earth. So in spirit form, when he came to me, I'll just tell you what happened. I was awoken from my sleep and I looked up, and on the ceiling, it was a whirling mist with this bright light in the center. And the whirling mist kept coming down closer and closer to me until I saw arms extend, and the brightest light was radiating down throughout both arms. And as soon as it was like close enough to me, those arms, the two arms with the light, it wrapped around me, lifted my back up, and all of that healing light and love and energy, it was pulsating in me. I never felt, I can't explain it. It was even more incredible than when I stood before God in heaven, because I was 100% healed. And not only just from Todd dying, but from any like past, anything, any trauma, anything bad I ever went through in my entire life. I was completely healed. And then in the morning, I just jumped out of bed, completely healed. So I thought that was Todd's spirit who came and healed me. So I went to speak to a rabbi and a priest, and they both said, no, that was God's spirit, because only God can completely heal you. So, you know, I thought that was just so incredible.
Yeah.
And then also my full purpose of why I was sent back to my life was revealed to me on the morning of Todd's memorial service, which I thought was, you know, just amazing too.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, tell me about your relationship with Todd. So you were 14 when you had your near-death experience. When did you meet Todd?
Okay, so Todd and I, you know, it's such a beautiful spiritual love story. I was a teenage model, so Todd was a supermodel, and I saw a picture of Todd, you know, in a magazine when he was about maybe 24, 25 years old. And as soon as I saw the picture, he reminded me, he just looked a lot like, you know, the prince in Cinderella. So I declared him my Prince Charming. I said, that's my Prince Charming. We're going to be together one day. But, you know, I think I said it more like as a fantasy. You know, I don't know if I truly believed that we would, you know, meet and fall in love. But my fairy tale did come true 34 years later. And before I tell you about that, I just want to say that they say that when you meet your twin flame, very often you dream about your twin flame years before you ever meet. So after I had saw that one picture of Todd, I kept having this reoccurring dream throughout my life before I actually met him. But I had no idea that it was Todd in my dream, because he was the age in my dream that he was when I met him. And he was 62 years old when I met him. And I had only seen that one picture of him when he was like 24 years old. So of course, totally look totally different, you know.
Hmm.
So in my dream, he was waiting for me at the altar to marry me. And my mother is walking me down the aisle. And when we get to the end of the aisle, Todd puts his hand out to take mine. And as soon as I take my hand, as soon as I put my hand out to take Todd's hand, I wake up from that dream. And I kept having that same reoccurring dream until I met him. And I would say, who is this man in my dream? You know? So then when I did meet Todd 34 years later, as soon as I saw him, I gasped. I was like, oh my gosh, that's you, you know? I could not believe it. So Todd and I, we fell deeply in love. We were both separated. And then we were planning on getting divorced to get married when suddenly I had no idea that he had died yet. He came to me in a visitation dream and he held me and he told me he loves me and will always be with me. And as soon as I woke up, I found out he died. So I collapsed because I was in complete shock, of course. And I was just so devastated. But then I said to myself, but he just came to me and he was holding me, telling me he loves me, will always be with me. So I knew he's still with me always spiritually, you know, and it was nonstop afterlife communication. And as I said, on his memorial service, the morning of his memorial service was when my full purpose was revealed to me, which I'll tell you, whenever I tell this to people, they're literally like tears are coming down their face. I wake up the morning of his funeral and I look out, you know, my window. I live on the water. Never before in the 17 years that I'm living there has there ever been a swan. You know, we get like seagulls, geese, never swans. So I look out and I see straight in front of me in the water are a pair of gorgeous swans. So I just knew this is a sign from Todd. So I run outside and my lawn, you know, it's all wet. I'm in my pajamas, my house slippers are ruined. You know, I don't care. I run down to the water and I'm yelling, Todd, wait. And then when I get to the water, now these swans, it's so amazing too. It's not like they were just sitting there waiting for me. When I looked out the window, they were gently floating together. It's not like they were sitting there hours waiting for me to wake up. So what is the odds? Just when I look out the window, gently floating, and they're exactly straight in front of my eyes. So when I go down to the water, you know, they were still gently floating. When they see me, they turn towards me, their necks entwine and the bills touch, kissing. I mean, it was such a breathtakingly beautiful, you know, sight. And I knew that it's a spiritual message to me of some sort. So I run back in my house and I Googled, what does a pair of swans mean spiritually? And sure enough, it comes right up that swans, they're the twin flame spirit animal, and they represent the eternal love of oneness between two beings. And twin flames are one soul that was split into two bodies and share the same consciousness. And they're very rare because you can have like 100 soulmates, but you only have one twin flame. Everyone only has one twin flame because it's, you know, it's the other half of your soul. So it's, you know, it's split, like it's one soul that was split into two bodies and share the same consciousness. And they're very rare because they're only sent here in their last lifetime when their soul is very advanced to raise the vibration of love and energy throughout the world. And, you know, that's why Todd and I, our lives really paralleled each other's, and twin flames do parallel each other. And, you know, it just really, it was just so fascinating that it was revealed to me on the morning of his memorial service. So it really comforted me so much that I knew our soul has been together from the moment of creation. And I knew that Todd is, guiding me from heaven to help me, for us to complete our twin flames mission together, with me here in the 3D, him in the 5D. And it was just nonstop afterlife communication from him. And here all along, I'm thinking, like, when I saw his picture when I was a teenager, I'm thinking that's like my celebrity crush. Did I ever really know this is like my twin soul, my twin flame? I never knew that, And then Todd even called me a year after he passed away. I was saying out loud to him, Todd, I need you to help me get my book, Hope from Heaven, into the right hands for a movie to be made out of it. And as soon as I said it, my phone rang. So I was in the kitchen cooking. I didn't answer it. As soon as I was done cooking, when I checked my caller ID, I couldn't believe it. I said, I just got a phone call from Todd from heaven. On my caller ID was Todd's phone number with the name of a famous Swedish Hollywood director, Mikael Hafström. So I knew that Todd was letting me know that perhaps, this Hollywood director is the right hands to get my book into for a movie to be made out of it, because my phone rang as soon as I said, Todd, I need you to help me get my book into the right hands for a movie to be made out of it. So I like to document as much of my afterlife communication as I can. So of course I took pictures and a video of that, which I always do. And I even, I took pictures of the beautiful swans, the twin flame swans on the morning of his memorial service. And if you go to my YouTube channel at Elissa Hope 4524, you'll see some really cool videos that I was able to capture. One is called A Visit from My Deceased Twin Flame. And you see Todd coming to me as an angel, as my angel. And you'll see the angel on the grass going into the water, And then I have another video on there that it says God's Spirit caught on camera. So it's not the one where God came to me and healed me, 2 weeks after Todd died. I couldn't film that. I was just like, couldn't get that. But you'll see this other one is really amazing. And it's all these birds circling all around, picking up on the angel energy, and God's Spirit, his energy, because birds are also messengers of spirit. I received so many fascinating bird signs. When Todd passed away, January 15th, his birthday was August 31st. And I was saying, I wish Todd was here with me physically to celebrate his birthday with him. And as soon as I said that, crash, I heard a loud smash my window, and I run and I look, and a huge belted kingfisher bird slammed into the window and it died. And again, we never get belted kingfisher birds around here ever, so, and I took a picture and videos of that. And then I Googled that, and it said very often when a loved one passes away, they will come to you on their birthday in the form of a bird, and it will hit your window. And it's a message from your loved one in heaven that they love you and they're always with you spiritually. So this is all so fascinating. And I love the name of your podcast, Grief to Growth, and that's why I wanted to be on it too, because it's just really, it is so true that, you have to turn your pain into purpose, and you will have so much spiritual growth. And I want everybody to know that true love never dies. It is endless. You just leave your body behind physically, but your soul is eternal. And our loved ones in heaven, they're with us now more than ever spiritually. You know, they watch over you, they love you, they protect you, they guide you. And they're always sending you signs and messages. You just have to be very open to it spiritually.
Mhm.
And if you are, then you will receive it. Because I do have a lot of people, you know, they write to me and they'll say, how come their loved ones don't come to them, like in visitation dreams, you know, or in other ways? And I say to them, because you have to have a very close, deep, personal relationship with God and pray to Him and ask Him to send, you know, signs from your loved ones to you, and speak to your loved ones also, you know, out loud to them in heaven, because they're always listening and they're trying to come through to you. You know, it can even be a sign, you know, like pennies from heaven all the time. I find a heads up penny, you know, and I know it's my loved ones from heaven. And even just when a song comes on the radio at like a certain time, you know, it could be like a song from your loved one, a very special song, and it is your loved one making contact with you. It's also fascinating and comforting.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a few questions for you. So when you came back, you said that you were told that you would have a relationship with your mother that might be a little bit turbulent, I think was
Yeah.
the word you used. So what was your relationship with your mother like? Your mother has passed on
Yeah.
spirit at this point.
Yeah, they weren't kidding. It was 100% true. It was exactly what they said. My mother and I did have a turbulent relationship, no bed of roses. But we were able to know what the other one was thinking and finish each other's sentences. It was all so true. And it's all in my book. I give so many different, you know, examples of
Right,
it.
right.
But I'll give you, you know, like one example was that my mother, she did get divorced, and she met her boyfriend who, you know, I didn't get along with him because he was very jealous of our relationship, of my mother and I. So he moved into, you know, our apartment, and he actually cornered me one day in the kitchen when my mother was not in the kitchen. And he couldn't bear that my mother and I were so close, you know, that we were best friends. And
Mhm.
he said to me, I'm going to do everything in my power to break you two apart. That's what he said. And I told this to my mother, and I said, you have to break up with him. You know, I said, he's not a nice man. What boyfriend would want to do that, you know, tear a mother and daughter's relationship
Sure.
apart? So my mother, you know, she wasn't very strong, like emotionally, you know. So she said to me, well, you know, he just loves me so much. He's a little possessive over me, you know. So I was like, no, you know, you really should break up with him. So
Mhm.
he did give her an ultimatum. He said, either you throw your daughter out and we change the locks, or I'm done with you. This is what he tells her. So my mother said, I can't, you know, just put my daughter out in the street, you know. So they did break up. But so a couple months went by, and my mother just, you know, she was lonely. She wasn't meeting anybody else. And then I started dating my husband, you know, who I wound up marrying.
Mhm.
And my mother said, you know, maybe I should call him because now you're, you know, it looks like you're in a serious relationship. So I said, no. I said, you know, it's not serious at all. I said, don't, you know, I told her, please do not. So then one night I come back from the movies, you know, with my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, and I
Mhm.
go to put the key in the door of our apartment, and it's not turning. So all of a sudden, the door opens up, and my mother's standing there with her boyfriend, and my mother's crying, and her boyfriend says, you know, we're back together, we're engaged, we're going to be getting married, we changed the locks, you can't live here anymore. And
Mm.
my mother's crying. My mother said, I'm so sorry, Elissa. She said, go with Freddie, you know, he'll take care of you. And I was dumbfounded, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And and she says, "I'm so sorry" again, and the door shuts. And I banged on the door, and I said, "This is what I came back from heaven for." I said, "This is what I came back for you from heaven." You know,
Mm.
for her to do that to me.
Right.
And I didn't speak to her for 9 months. But then I got pregnant, and then my husband, he asked me to marry him. So I said, I wanted my mother to be a part of, I wanted my child to have a grandmother, So then I called my mother. But would you
Mm-hmm.
believe my mother said to me, I have to, because then my mother was married at the time. She's like, I have to ask, just make sure that I could see you again. I mean, I was like, it was like he brainwashed her. So
Wow.
then she calls me the next day. She said, okay, he said it's okay because now, you're pregnant, getting married. He didn't feel threatened, I guess, by me anymore. It
Mm-hmm.
was unbelievable, right? So anyway, but I loved my mother so much that I chose to forgive her, and we repaired our relationship. And she always apologized to me. She said she was sorry, but she said, I figured you were going to marry, who I was seeing
Mm-hmm.
at the time, but I actually wasn't going to, because it's in my book. I won't say about that, but wait until you see. I was like, your timing really stunk, because it was quite the opposite. I was
Right.
actually breaking off with my boyfriend that night. So, but I was waiting to tell him when we got into the apartment, because I thought
Mm-hmm.
in case he was like mad at me, at least my mother will be there.
Right.
So I was like, it was like talking about being caught between a rock and a hard place, right?
Right.
But again, I just loved my mother so much that I couldn't, I just couldn't go the rest of my life without, having her in my life again. So, and then also, my mother and I would read each other's minds. I'll give you an example.
Mm-hmm.
She did not know. And so that baby that I had been pregnant with, I had a miscarriage. So I didn't have my beautiful baby then. But then years later, when I got pregnant again, I came from the doctor, and I was walking into my house, and my phone is ringing, and I answer it. And my mother said, Elissa, I had a dream last night that you're pregnant and you're going to have a girl. And I had just come from the doctor, who confirmed I'm pregnant. And I did have a beautiful baby girl,
Mm-hmm.
Rafaela. So we had, exactly what my guardian angel said. They weren't kidding.
So you had this experience when you were 14, but it
Yeah.
was sounds like many years after that before you got your purpose. What were you
Right.
thinking in the meantime? Were you thinking, when's this going
Mm-hmm.
to come, or were you having
Yes.
doubts?
Well, it would be things. My time in heaven would come to me in like these flashbacks.
Hmm.
I would I would be sitting in school or walking through the park with friends, and it would be like a jolt of electricity would be like so quickly going through my head, and it was like all these flashbacks of everything in
Mm-hmm.
heaven, and it was so strong that I would take my hand and put my hand in my hands like that until it would stop. And my teachers or my friends would say, are you okay? And I would say yes. But I mean, it was like really incredible. It would stop me right in my tracks.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, so it would be revealed to me in bits and pieces. And I did remember, I fully remembered going through the tunnel into the light, my three
Mm-hmm.
guardian angels waiting for me, giving me the choice of staying in heaven or returning to my life. And I always remembered, being face to face with God. The only thing that I didn't know was when it was revealed to me about that, my twin flame purpose that was revealed to me on the morning of Todd's memorial service, because twin flames, they're light workers.
Okay.
And they're sent here to raise the vibration of love and energy throughout the world. So I knew that, okay, I'm God's messenger, but I'm also a light worker. So as soon as that was revealed to me, that's when I wrote the book. It's the best way that I can reach out to everybody. to heal them spiritually and, to enlighten them all about God's light and love, spirituality and purpose, not only here on earth, but, also in heaven.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew that was the best way, through writing the book. And I also do reach out to people who have, like you, who have lost, a child. And this one woman who I reached out to, she lost all three of her children in a horrible house fire. It was so sad. And her parents died too. I mean, she lost like pretty much her whole family in this house fire. And I reached out to her, and, I thought she was just so amazing, because instead of being like so bitter about it, she thanked God for the amount of time that she did have with her precious children here on earth, versus another woman who lost her daughter, her beautiful 24-year-old daughter. She said to me, I don't believe in God anymore. After that happened. So I said, no, you have to believe in God. I said, it's in your darkest hour that there is light, and I said, you must never turn your back on God, because God never turns his back on you. And I promised her that one day she will know why it happened, because as I was told in heaven by my guardian angels, that every second of your life is already written in the book. And once you're born, not a second of it can be changed. So, when something tragic does happen, you just have to know that there's a reason behind it. There's always a silver lining behind every cloud, no matter how bad or sad that it is. And the only way that you have spiritual growth is when you go through the hardest, most suffering times in your life. It's the only way that your soul will grow spiritually. And this is also why we are here on earth, is to serve a purpose for God, and also to have a certain amount of spiritual growth. This is what you sign up for before you're born. You're a part of mapping out your whole life here on earth, believe it or not. At times it may be like, I can't believe that, but it's the God's honest truth.
Well, it's interesting. You said that every second of our life is written out. So there's always a big debate about free will versus predetermination. So does that leave room for us to be able to make choices? Can we make choices? Can we change?
Yes. Well, I'll tell you, I feel like I'm a perfect example of that, because my guardian angels told me that every second of your life is already written in a book. Once you're born, not a second of it can be changed. But at the same time, I was given that choice in heaven,
right,
of staying in heaven or returning to life. So it's like you still do have that, free will, but at the same time, God knows exactly what your choice is going to be, and that's already predestined, written in the book. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
and I do know what you mean, and I think that's a really interesting point, because again, there's a debate either or, and I always, when we have debates like that, and some people
it's actually both.
What if it's both, right?
It is.
If you had perfect knowledge, and like if you have children, you kind of know what your children are going to do. You know the personalities, the circumstances. You can kind of figure out some of the choices they're going to make. If you had perfect knowledge, you could, I guess, know everything that was going to happen, and it wouldn't preclude the idea that we also have choice at the same time.
Yeah. I just know exactly what I was told in heaven by my guardian angels, so it all makes perfect sense to me, because I lived it. This was exactly, what I was told in heaven. And it just, and also what you said. I can only tell you what I was told by my guardian angels and God. And I feel that it's very comforting to know that, because when something very sad does happen, and tragic, you can't beat yourself up saying like, if only I didn't do this, that wouldn't have happened, right? Because it was already predestined that it was going to happen no matter what.
Yeah, and that's a very good point. I work with a lot of parents who have lost children,
Right.
and every parent that I've talked to who's lost a child, every parent I've worked with, has
Mhm.
felt some level of guilt, whether it
Right.
was from cancer, whether it was drug abuse, whether it was
Right.
murder, whatever it was. Because as a
Mhm.
parent, they're like, if I had just done this differently, they would
Exactly.
still be here.
Exactly. So that's why I always tell people it's comforting to know that every second of your life is already written in the book and none of it can be changed. That way, that removes the guilt. You know, I used to beat myself up too all the time if something didn't go my way, you know, something bad happened. I was like, oh, if only I just didn't do that one thing, it would not have happened.
Mm-hmm.
But I know, you know, of course, that no, I don't do that anymore because I know it was happening no matter what. So that that really helps me to live my life more fully, you know, to a fuller extent. And I don't if and or but anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And it just makes me then, you know, I'm so spiritual. And of course, I'm not afraid of dying because I always say, been there, done that already, you know.
Right.
And I want everybody to know also that all the proceeds from my book, it goes towards animal rescue. I'm the biggest animal lover, and my mission is to expand a good no-kill animal shelter. And I want everybody to know that we all reunite with our pets in heaven. And I'll give you an example.
Mm-hmm.
I had a dream, a visitation dream from my beloved twin flame Todd. He came to me on my daughter's 16th birthday with my childhood dog, Shag. And Todd said to me, look who's here with me. Look who I brought to visit you. And it was my childhood dog, Shag. And he was young and healthy again. And he's running around so excited in circles, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I woke up so happy because I'm the biggest animal lover. And I always wonder too, will we reunite with our pets in heaven? So 100%, I know that we will. And that makes, I know people are so happy because there are fur babies, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I have so many people reach out to me and you know that they miss their pets so much, you know. They were like, that was the hardest thing for them to go through, so they're so comforted when they read my book and they see that they'll be reunited again. And I always say, if you spell dog backwards, you know what it is, you know,
Right.
God, because I truly feel that they are God's gift to the world. They give unconditional love, you know. They're just amazing.
Now, I know a lot of times when people have near-death experiences, they come back with ability to
Yeah.
communicate the other side. Some
Mm-hmm.
clairvoyance. You said you had that thing with your mother where you could fit into each other's thoughts. Are you
Yes.
still connected with the other side? Do you hear from people, from beings on the other side, or
Oh,
people on the other side?
yes. Yes. And as soon as I did come back from heaven at 14 years old, I came back very clairvoyant. Even as soon as I came back, I would have dreams, visions, premonitions, and it would happen, you
Mm-hmm.
know. I'll give you an example. I was just walking into my kitchen one day and I just blurted out of my mouth. I said, oh no, Brad has cancer. That's my brother. And I got upset with myself. I was like, don't say that, Elissa. Why did you say that? And then my brother called me later on and he said, Elissa, I have bad news. I have cancer. And I told him, I know, it just came out of my mouth. So, and then I would have dreams sometimes, you know, about my family members and also friends. Their deceased loved ones would come to me to relay messages to them. And I also had a dream about my brother Brad's daughter, that she was in sleepaway camp and she fell at the pool and sprained her ankle. So when I woke up from that dream, I called my sister-in-law and I told her, and she's like, I don't believe it. I just got a call from Adina's sleepaway camp. She fell at the pool and twisted her ankle. So So if I tell them, don't go on that flight, they don't go, they always tell me to tell them, and yes, all the time I have dreams, premonitions. So I came back with a very photographic memory as well. People can't believe I go to the library and I just tell them my library number. And they're like, you're the only one who knows your library number,
Right.
And yeah, and I do just, I'm always like, I feel like I still have that higher consciousness to heaven, Sometimes I feel like, part of me is still in heaven. So it's definitely changed me a lot.
I'm curious. Sometimes when people come back, they go through a depression. They're not being connected to the other side. It's so beautiful and peaceful there.
Yeah.
Some people, now you made a choice. Some people have felt rejected because they were sent back. You actually made a choice. Did you go through any period where you were integrating this experience?
Well, if I ever did go through, a hard time in my life, and as my guardian angels told me in heaven that I was going to go through something very bad, that I didn't think I would survive it, but that I would, because they'd be watching over me the whole time. So, and it's true, I did go through something I didn't think I was going to survive. And so then, I did go through like a depression. But that was when, see, that's why I tell everybody, in your darkest hour, there is light, because that was actually the best thing, that when I went through that terrible time, that's when I did my most amount of soul searching. And that was when I actually did say, okay, now I'm ready to know why, I died and I got sent back to my life. I just started doing all the soul searching. And then I started to see, I came out of that dark time where I grew a lot more spiritually, and I wouldn't trade anything that I have gone through in my life, because I just feel so good about where I am in my life spiritually now. And my mom, she passed away last year, and she gives me incredible afterlife communication. I mean, I was even, just before she died, I had a dream that she died. So I was going through this, like, they call it a shared death experience. I was receiving all these signs that my mother's going to die just before she did die. And then when she did die, it was so incredible. We still have that incredible bond with each other, because I came back from heaven for her. So now I have to get used to her in heaven and me here on earth. But when she did die, I said, because I whispered in her ear, I was saying, when you've had enough, it's okay. I said, go towards the light, And I told her I loved her enough to let her go. So you'll get chills from this. When she did die, that morning, I had to go in the car. I had to go pick up something, in town. And I turn on the radio, and what song just starts playing? Let Her Go. And I said, I loved her enough to let her go. So I said, Mom, I know that's you. And then when I came home, I turned on the radio in my house. It's a different radio station. What song just comes on the radio? Let Her Go. So it's like, come on, what's the odds of that? I knew it was my mom. And she comes to me all the time in dreams. And she came to me in one dream, and she said, don't be so sad, Elissa, because I'm the happiest that I've ever been. And she was young again and glowing. I mean, she was never that happy here on earth. She was radiating just light and energy, and so happy that when I woke up, I said, how can I be sad, because she's so happy now. And she comes to me with other messages too. So I'm really, I want other people, I would love to help them, heal them spiritually, because they don't want you to spend, your time like grieving them. They just want you, they want you to celebrate them and just be so happy that they're so happy in heaven and they're with you all the time. They're just right by your side. At my mother's funeral, some incredible things happened that, I mean, you would get chills from, and everybody witnessed it who was there, so their mouths dropped open, and I said, well, she's showing us that she's here,
Yeah.
So it's really all beautiful and fascinating. And I say life is just a moment of eternity. We're really all just here for a short time. So you want to really make the most of every day that you have, and always pray to God and thank God, because God is good. He doesn't give us anything more than we can handle. So I assure you he doesn't. I feel like I had to go through a lot that I did because I needed to, grow. I needed to get stronger because I was always spiritually strong, but I wasn't physically strong, Like, I'm embarrassed to say, I remembered, like, before I had my near-death experience, if I was out and it started raining, I was like, oh, I can't handle, like, the rain falling on me, you know what I mean? And now, like, I love it. So, I mean, I just needed, like, to really get tougher, stronger, like, physically. So now I'm, like, so strong in every single way. So it's all, life is just, it's a precious gift. But I always say, I'm here now to give back. For me, it's all giving back because, I stood before God in heaven. I just want to do what he sent me back here to do. And I want to make him proud of me. And if I could try to help make heaven a place on earth, because there's so much like sad things going on in the world today. It's a hard time to be in the world, right?
Yeah.
So every day I try and do a good deed, no matter what it is, just like holding the door open for someone or, giving money to your favorite charity or call, a loved one, a friend, or even a neighbor. Like I have a neighbor who lives alone and I'll call and check up on her just to make sure she's okay. And it's just things like that makes other people's lives easier, and it's good karma. It'll come back to you. That's what I always say. For me, I feel better when I'm giving rather than receiving,
So people wonder what heaven is like. And I know you said you got to a point where there was a door and you knew if you went through that door, that was kind of a point of no return. But as far as what you were able to experience in heaven, as best as you can, how would you describe that?
Well, when I went through the tunnel into the brightest light, I mean, it's just the brightest light. And, it didn't hurt my eyes at all. It was so beautiful. My 3 guardian angels, I remember thinking maybe they're triplets because they looked identical to each other, and they were so beautiful and just sweet and kind and loving, and I saw there was beautiful meadows and just flowers in all different colors. And, when I was back here on earth and I was meditating, I was shown to me my daughter, Rafaela, that I was going to have her. And I did have her 5 years later. And it was just, incredible that she was shown to me because that was, I was actually depressed when I was meditating. And I was saying why am I still here? I should have just stayed in heaven. And then all of a sudden I was shown this beautiful baby girl, that I had her 5 years later. And then also when I did have her in the maternity ward, all of the babies, the bassinets they were in, their backs were to me. So I could not see which one was my daughter, and all of a sudden this bright light, it just shot out straight from me to this one baby. And it was Rafaela. Because then I asked the nurse, I pointed and she held her up and she said, that was my Rafael. So I thought that was incredible, And I could go on and on and on. It's just, this is, you know, I'm just so grateful for like all that I did die, you know, because it just, I still have that higher consciousness to heaven. And now I just want to help others. It's all I want to do until I can get back home to heaven, emerge back as one soul with Todd, where we'll be one with God for all of eternity. And I also want to say, you know, that some people have said, well, isn't your daughter your purpose too? And I say, yes, absolutely. I mean, that goes without saying, you know, because I'm always talking about like my twin flames purpose, you know. But of course, she's a big part of my purpose as well, you know. She's my only child. So
Yeah.
I can't believe she's turning 20 on Sunday, which was like mind-boggling, you know. They grow up so quickly. So,
I understand
right?
that. My daughter was 15 when she passed, and it's been almost 9 years. And some memories came up the other day and from on Facebook, and it said this was 21 years ago. I'm like, well, it can't be 21 years ago. That was before she was born, but it wasn't.
Right. It's amazing.
She would be 24. So
Oh,
yeah, I understand what
yeah.
you're saying about time, and you've
Yeah.
answered so many questions for us today about life's purpose, about about having guilt, about God being with us, never being alone. So many questions. But if there's any overarching message, if there's one message people should take from your experience, because you said you came back here with a purpose, what do you think
Yeah.
that might be?
I always say I like to leave off with the message that true love never dies, ever. So we all, you know, we leave our bodies behind physically, but your soul is eternal. So your loved ones, they are always with you, loving you, protecting you, and guiding you. And I don't think like there's anything more than I can say than that, because I really feel that that says it all, you know, which is very comforting to people, because, you know, we all lose loved ones in our lifetime, you know, either, you know, they're going to die eventually, or we're going to die, you know, so we're like all in this together, you know, and just to know that true love never dies.
Awesome. I think that's a great way to end up. Now, I know, again, we talked about a lot. You have a lot of experience, and some things we couldn't talk about. You alluded to that you're in their book. So just make
Right.
sure everybody knows the name of your book, where they can get it, and if you want people to reach out to you, how they can reach out to you.
On my author website at elissahope.com. And there's a contact form and my email address, you know, so I'm always happy to hear from my readers, you know, and I respond to everybody who contacts me. And, you know, I would just like to say, I hope nobody minds. I know I have a very strong New York, Long Island accent.
A little
So
bit.
a little bit, right? Some people like it, other people may don't. So, you know, I just say, well, you know, this is how God, you know, made me. So I was born and bred, you know, in New York. So I know I have a very heavy Long Island accent.
Oh, I think it's cool. I love accents. My wife, my parents, my family's from the South, so I know some people have issues with
Oh,
Southern accents, but I think they're all
right.
very cool. So yeah,
Oh,
Elissa, it's been really great meeting you, getting to know you today. Thank you for sharing your
thank you.
story.
Oh, it
Um,
was my pleasure.
yeah, great. So enjoy the rest of your day.
You too, Brian. God bless you and all of your viewers. Thank you.